Hello, everybody. Welcome to What's Next. We're here with the Indy NXT Oval Series from Phoenix Raceway, formerly Phoenix International Raceway, formerly ISM Raceway, for round 3 of 12 here in the first season of 2026, season 1 for the Indy NXT Oval Series. We're in for an interesting one this week. We saw the legacy scan of this track last season. Cars fanned out nice and wide, but this seems to be a bit easier to get around on the newer pavement here on the current scan with that reconfiguration done a couple of years ago. Sophie, what do you think we're in for tonight?
Well, Jacob, I think we're in for an absolute treat here. Phoenix is a track steeped in history and open wheel racing, particularly for the Indy cars. You'll have legends who've competed here like Johnny Rutherford. Mario Andretti got his last win here. Nigel Mansell has raced here. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of competitors wanting to add their name to that legacy for a track that is very, very prominent in open wheel oval racing.
Yeah, we'll actually hop out with Chris Fletcher, who came just short in the last race that preceded this in a photo finish with Dylan Wylazinski. He's getting up to speed for qualifying here. Biggest thing that you're going to see drivers do here is that they're going to be tucked all the way down in the corners as best as they can be, while not trying to scrub speed. That tends to come kind of in the middle lane on both ends of the track, but we'll see drivers maybe try to cut down to keep their car nice and tidy as they navigate this 1 mile track in Avondale, Arizona.
Yeah, and we definitely have some big names in this field tonight. We obviously have some oval regulars like Crash Neom, and then we also have some other regulars to this series like Matt Glam, and I of course see Chris Fletcher and Dylan Wylazinski, Andy Kirkenbauer. So it should be a very competitive race tonight.
Yeah, we're seeing a number of cars click off some times in qualifying here. Jarrett Corey provisionally on the pole with a 22.221. I expected to see times maybe in the high ones potentially. Fletcher goes provisionally to the pole with a 2.1. So we'll see if anybody can break that 2/10 barrier and get down to the ones there. But that's ultimately going to be kind of the echelon of single car running, I think, so far this week. Given a look, it seems like the bulk of the lap times are getting set low 22.1s, maybe a 22.0 with a bit of help around the track here. Still got about another 3 minutes or so, but a lot of drivers are likely getting in their qualifying runs nice and early. Wylazinski's hit the track. He's getting up to speed now. We'll hop to him. Oh, that's Indy. Get to Wylazinski now. He goes provisionally to the pole with a 22.193. I think he's working lap 2 now. And you see he's tucked all the way down to that yellow line coming through 3 and 4 here. And you can hear the engine bog down just a little bit in doing that, but ultimately a very, very fast overall time, trying to get as little time spent around the track. Not a lot of gap near the top. That's what I'm seeing near the front of the field. The top 5 separated by just 0.07 of a second.
Yep, everyone who has set a time is within the same half second. The real difference here is going to be those small micro adjustments, whether or not you scrub just that little bit of speed, because the track temps right now are quite cool. They're like 23 degrees Celsius. Unfortunately, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but that's a fairly cold track temp, especially for Arizona. And so that's going to definitely help with the mission of not scrubbing the tires.
That's a conversion I don't know off the top of my head, unlike the ones for miles an hour and kilometers per hour. But I want to say that puts it probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 Fahrenheit or so in the air, I think. It's
yeah,
like
approximately. The conversion is divide or multiply depending which way you're going by 1.8, and then plus or minus 32.
Ah, right. Yeah, you got to do your base addition there. So it looks like just about everybody's set a qualifying time. We still got another minute left to go as there's a couple cars still circulating the track, but grid is more or less set. Up near the front of the field, it's a lot of usual suspects, especially this season, and we'll get to run through those very shortly. Good to see people chiming into the chat, rooting on their favorite driver here tonight. And we shall see who put it at the front. Dylan's chimed in and told us he ran the apron in 1 and 2. So he's giving out secrets nice and early once the qualifying has finished. But let's get to the starting grid here. Get some times on the screen. And it will be Dylan Wylazinski starting on the pole here tonight. He lays down a 22.193, the only driver to break into that 22.1 bracket. Alongside him will be Chris Fletcher. They'll be lining up the exact same way they finished the previous race here tonight. He'll roll off from second. Jarrett Corey will line up third, looking for another solid finish at Indy NXT competition here tonight. Taylor Thurman will line up fourth. Last season's champion, Indy Kirkwood, the Prodigy, will line up from the third row on the inside in P5. Ryan A. Brown will line up in 6th. John Corwin 7th. Dustin Bolgren will line up 8th. Clay Kirkenbauer, the father of the Prodigy, will be 9th. Richard Cragen will be 10th. Crash Neon will line up 11th. We got Joe Robert making an appearance here tonight. Our number 1 car, he'll line up 12th. Matt Glenn will line up 13th in the 15 machine. Kevin Crotty will line up 14th. We've got Jason Goodman in the 15th spot. Tommy King and Gary Yost will round out our 17-car field here tonight. So we've got just one pace lap to work with here, so we're going to have to hop back to the front of the field and catch them. Pace car's already off. Gets off nice and early here at Phoenix in its current configuration. We'll get things squared away.
Yep. And I do notice Dylan Wylazinski is keeping it slow until he actually sees the green, not jumping early.
Green, green, green.
He'll launch, get a good jump nonetheless despite the wait. We'll hop back to just behind him now as Jarrett Corey's going to look to the inside of Chris Fletcher heading into turns 1 and 2. We're 3 wide for the 4th spot. That's going to be Kirkenbauer on the inside. I believe Brown's on the outside. He's going to get the best of that. Thurman's going to lose some ground there. They're 2 by 2 for the first couple spots here behind Dylan. They're going to go 3 wide. Brown in the middle on Fletcher and Corey now.
Yeah, and you know who is loving this? It's Dylan Wylazinski. Wylazinski is already pulling out a gap over the rest of the field. I'm sure he is hoping to not see a yellow, hoping none of this incredible battling back in the back comes to tears.
Yeah, this isn't too dissimilar to previous events we've had here at Phoenix in a number of Road to Indy cars in the past. It stays relatively 2 by 2 for a time, and then ultimately one lane kind of starts losing ground as the tires start to fall away ever so slightly. It's a bit more noticeable, at least so far here tonight, as Corey's going to get to second, but he's already a second back of Dylan Wylazinski at the front of the field, so he'll have his work cut out for him if he's looking to make it to the front here tonight.
Yeah, and it seems that both Jarrett Corey and Indy Kirkenbauer a little concerned with how aggressive Ryan has been in the early parts of this race, not liking the 3 wide on lap 3.
Well, Ryan's just gone purple, so clearly the aggression's paying off, at least on the pylon, to some extent. We'll see if that ultimately goes against him later on. It's possible he's put a bit more abuse on those tires, making those very bold moves on the outside of the track, especially on lap 1 there. Field has gotten to mostly single file until we get back to, I believe that's going to be Taylor Thurman and John Corwin side by side for the 6th spot. They'll come off of turn 2, head down the back stretch, formerly the front stretch. I still don't like having the start-finish line in the corners, but we've got it 2 by 2 here. Corey's starting to close. It's now a half second. We'll see if he's able to reel in Wylazinski for the front of the field here. Obviously still under fire from Ryan Brown and Indy Kirkenbauer behind him.
Yeah, and Ryan is desperately looking for a way around. It's really difficult to pass with these cars here, given how cold the track temps are, given how powerful that white line is. We see them starting to fan out. Ryan is really trying to make the high side work, but needs to be careful to not let Indy Kirkenbauer in on the bottom.
Yeah, and the one thing you'll start to notice is as we start to reel Dylan Wylazinski back in, it's starting to maybe stretch a bit back out as these guys start racing each other. But you'll see Jarrett Corey get kind of hung out on the high side here. And that's going to be something you'll notice is that the draft window on this track is very, very large. And there's not a ton of dirty air impact just because of how wide and sweeping the corners are, especially through 3 and 4.
Yeah, Ryan Brown is only slightly faster than Wylazinski, but with that draft range and that draft, he should be pulling back up into that rear wing of that Dallara IL-15.
Now working lap 11. This will be the 1/5 mark of the race for those keeping score at home. 55 laps here tonight. Certainly going to be an interesting one, but not the longest in terms of lap count we have yet to see this season. That'll be next week at Myrtle Beach. 100 laps under the lights at the track formerly in Myrtle Beach, hence the name. So that'll be the last of the night races for the 2026 season. And I know a number of drivers are looking forward to some proper short track action on the half mile in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, I just want to highlight real quick while we're watching these cars, mostly in single file. Jason Goodman has been so far the biggest mover, has gained 4 positions from where he was on the start in that 11 machine. Currently trying to move up further, but it seems instead he has been shuffled out. Currently under assault from Kevin Karate, our biggest mover from last week.
And shout out to Jason. He's looking to hold it tough on the outside. We do have a bit of a contest between Ryan Brown and Indy Kirkenbauer for the second spot. They've caught the back of Dylan Wylazinski now. We'll see if they're able to find a way forward.
Yeah, and you can see Kirkenbauer taking a wider entry, possibly trying to preserve their tires, because when you're trying to keep it tight and pinching that car down, you are asking more of these Firestone tires. And I am curious if maybe Indy Kirkenbauer have a little bit more in the tank as you see him once again going to the high side, but trying to pinch it down.
Yeah, that's ultimately how you kind of keep cars at bay, is putting them nice and tight on that inside line, and you could slowly, ever so slowly, start to build that momentum. Ryan Brown,
we see.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to highlight Cliff Fletcher has gotten around Jarrett Corey.
Move Fletcher to 4th. I wanted to point out that Ryan Brown was looking to take that dogleg cut almost with how low he was getting off of turn 4 there. The big thing here is that we're running the configuration of this track that does not allow use of that apron section. This is more akin to what we've seen on the open wheel circuit in the past with IndyCar's most recent visit in 2018. So no use of the asphalt drop there. We see a lot of cars shuffling to the inside of the track there. I believe that's Clay Kirkenbauer and Dustin Bolgren looking to the low side here, or fighting rather. But that ultimately is a restriction here, right? There's not as many options for cars to move around and make moves on that low side of the track. You can't go any lower than the double yellow or the single yellow line wrapped around the bottom of this place.
Right, and it's so easy to lose patience. You're just trapped behind the car in front. You're just staring at their last name, and you're just desperate for any kind of way by. But it's really tricky here. It's indescribable how difficult it is to try and build enough of a run that you can possibly force yourself underneath them instead. As we see Dylan Wylazinski just covering off Ryan A. Brown on the bottom.
Yeah, let's actually...
And it looks like Kirkenbauer is getting underneath Ryan Brown here. Possibly a change for the second position. The votive driver has gotten underneath Ryan Brown. Ryan Brown is on the high side now and getting shuffled back, it seems.
Yeah, Indy snuck in there just at the right time. He's going to stay down low here. We'll see if he can keep this momentum built up. Brown's going to slot in, look underneath. It's hard to cover all the lanes at once with how close the cars are together. You almost see Brown make contact with that left rear tire, navigating turns 3 and 4. They'll head off into 1 and 2. We'll see if Indy's got anything for Dylan. He's going to look high here, try to build up that momentum heading down the backstretch.
Yeah, and honestly, it almost looked like Ryan was going to do the crossover, an old road course racing move there. on Andy Kirkenbauer there with how much momentum Ryan managed to get off that corner. But it looks like, oh, Ryan is going back underneath. We are seeing a constant shuffle here between P2 and P3. And it's possible Chris Fletcher will try and follow Ryan Brown through.
Certainly at least looks promising that Indy's been able to hold his own on the outside lane here. Brown hasn't been able to quite pull away just yet. We'll see if he does so through 3 and 4 here. But ultimately, you know, we see Dylan kind of moving up and down the track trying to feed air to either car so they stay fighting and they can kind of back off of him. And that's very smart on his part. He knows that it's going to be a lot easier to maintain the ground or the positioning he has with these cars fighting behind him.
Yeah, and it looks like they are definitely weaving, doing everything they can to try and keep each other from getting the bottom there. It's just, it doesn't matter how hard you can hang tough here on the outside. It seems that the inside line is just so dominant. You want to be down there. And once again, Dylan Wylazinski has checked out a little bit on the field. He gets a little bit of a reprieve.
We're just about to the halfway mark now. We run through the field here. Hasn't been a ton of motion near the front of the field past the opening lap. We've seen Thurman fall down the order to 8th. Dustin Bolgren's worked his way up to 7th. John Roberts up to the top 10 and 10th. And they're all packed in relatively close together. I believe the overall separation between 1st and 10th is just under a second and a half. So nobody's really fallen properly away just yet.
No, and it can all close right back up in a heartbeat if we get a caution. It seems right now, though, it is spreading out a little bit at the front. You have Dylan Wylazinski all on his own, but then just a few tenths back is Ryan Brown and Andy Kirkenbauer, and then there's a small couple tenth gap between them and Chris Fletcher. Jarrett Corey has fallen further off. It's now Matt Glam running in 5th, and then Dustin Bolgren in 6th. I'm sure Jarrett Corey is not entirely happy with his performance tonight, given how much they have fallen back after qualifying 3rd. They're now currently sitting in the 8th position in that 12 machine.
It does seem ultimately it's coming down to where you have your car placed and if you're able to hold it there, right? We've seen drivers be able to kind of switch back and forth on each other near the front here as Brown's going to get caught back up to Wylazinski here. They're going to kind of serpentine back on in, or the Constantina rather, as we're working a little over halfway now. Be interesting to see if anybody's got anything for them this time around. I'm wondering if they're maybe trying to start to work together here, knowing that the only opportunity they're really going to have to pass him is if they all kind of play together and maybe make that move a multi-car pass.
There's a car on the wall further back in the field. Don't want to distract from the battle, but there was, did see a bunch of dust. Oh, there's a car on the wall. Hard crash through the dog leg.
I believe that's going to be Dustin Bolgren. We'll see what happened to Dustin here. Get the replay on it as quick as we can. So here we come into turns 3 and 4. He's on the inside of, I believe that's Matt Glenn. They're going to make contact here.
Yeah.
And Glenn cuts back down, it looks like, potentially. We'll have to see maybe from closer down on the track, but that's going to hook Bolgren into the outside wall. I believe it's only going to be Bolgren and Glenn involved in this one. We'll hop to Glenn's machine.
Yeah.
He's in the front of it.
Yeah, it definitely looks like both of them, their day is probably going to be done. Or
yeah, if we look from Glenn's perspective of the in-car here, he's going to run low into turns 3 and 4 here. You can see the contact there with Bolgren there. He's going to get... I'm almost wondering if his car got either stuck or stuck pointing in the direction following the contact with Bolgren, but that's going to be likely night done for both drivers. Tough break just past the halfway mark here for them, but we'll reset the field and get you caught up with the running order as it stands. Wylazinski leads over Ryan Brown. Indy Kirkenbauer in the number 3 for Votive will be 3rd. Chris Fletcher will be 4th. He's worked his way up through the field. Taylor Thurman's worked his way back forward after starting, I believe, in the 4th spot. He's in 5th. Jarrett Corey gets bailed out a little bit by this one. He'll roll off on the restart in 6th. Joe Robert, after starting, I believe, 16th, has worked his way up to 7th in our number 1 car tonight. He's putting on a good show. Likewise with Jason Goodman starting deep in the field. He's up to 8th. Crash Neon, he runs in the 9th spot. Kevin Crotty in 10th. Clay Kirkenbauer in 11th. Gary Yost working from 15th has made it up to 12th. Tommy King in 13th. And then Richard Cragen is in the pit lane, potentially serving some unrelated damage from the incident we just saw.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was definitely hearing about this caution from all the voice chatter from the drivers, it seems Jarrett Corey was not pleased with how Matt Glenn and Dustin were driving them. Seemed to have the Fernando Alonso karma moment for him.
We'll certainly give the fans their opinion on that. Ultimately, those cars are both out of this event due to a collision that transpired just before this. Lights are out on the pace car. That means we'll get the green flag coming to 20 laps to go. Big thing here is can Dylan Wylazinski get that jump on the restart we've seen time and time again him be able to make in Oval Series competition here on the P1 channel. That seems to hold the cars at bay for a time, but it's almost going to be a matter of when, not if, those cars behind him manage to gather back up to them or to him if they're able to make a move.
Yep, and you see them all lining up on the high line. It is illegal to pass to the inside, but you can pass to the outside, and that is why you are seeing them all lining up against that outside wall as we head to green.
Pace car has been off for a while. Dylan's going to launch nice and early this time. Green flag is out. We'll hop back to that battle for the 2nd spot between Brown and Kirkenbauer as Fletcher will join them. Field remains single file. And I think this is going to turn into a little bit of game of riding around until we get the momentum built back up for these cars trying to chase down Dylan Wylazinski.
Yeah, for sure, but of course that clock is ticking down. We're on lap 38 out of 55. Jarrett Corey has gone purple in the 6th place position, that number 12 machine, setting the fastest lap of the race. Currently, fastest lap is a 22 even faster than what we saw during qualifying, Jacob.
Yeah, and I'm imagining the draft on the straightaways is going to help a little bit as we'll see Brown get all over the gearbox of Wylazinski. He's going to look a little bit to the outside here, try to build up some momentum, try to make the move into turns 3 and 4 here. He's going to get back to the outside here. Wylazinski will run defensive, but that draft is going to play a big factor, especially as you have a bit more space to play with. Once these cars get compacted back up, it's going to be harder and harder to do as we see.
Yep. Ryan Brown ran that very, very low, tempting that slowdown, trying to get any angle on Dylan Wylazinski.
Yeah, you could tell he's absolutely chomping at the bit off of turn 4, trying to get the car cut down just that little bit lower, try to build the run. He's going to have a little bit of a run to the outside there, but ultimately going to tuck back into line. Fletcher's going to look to the high side on Kirkenbauer for 3rd. Not sure that's really going to go anywhere. He'll tuck back in, cut low. He's going to try to set himself up on the bottom.
Joe Robert has entered the top 5 after starting in the 12th place spot. That is quite a run. See Joe Robert currently up there on the high side, I believe, in the number 1 machine, on the high side of Jarrett Corey.
Yeah, he's battling side by side with, I believe, Taylor Thurman now on the inside. He's going to get moved up into that 5th spot for now. He's got the draft of Chris Fletcher ahead. See Kirkenbauer now the lone car on the bottom here. This is why Lazinski's going to look high again. He's going to let the cars go 2 by 2 behind him. 13 to go.
Been really interesting to see how now that the high line seems to be coming into its own as the track has evolved. As it seems Ryan Brown and Joe Robert have been able to hold their own against Indy Kirkenbauer and Chris Fletcher respectively.
Some of that, too, might just be where Dylan's running ahead of them. They're able to get a toe off the corners down the straightaways where arguably it matters the most. You see Lazinski come all the way out to the wall here. He's going to pull the likes of Robert and Brown ahead. I think Chris Fletcher noticed that as well.
Yeah, indeed. And now we see that Ryan Brown has cleared Indy Kirkenbauer. Joe Robert now kind of being left hung out to dry. I'll be curious to see how far he tumbles down the order.
Brown once again cutting as low as he possibly can. You saw maybe momentarily his car, or at least a couple tires, dip below that yellow line. He's still maintaining speed here.
Yep, the German is weaving and weaving, finding any way to get around Dylan Lazinski.
And we've got basically the entire field wrapped up under a blanket if we get all the way back to Kevin Crotty in the 11th spot. They're all within a second. Even Richard Cragen sits 1.1 back, so the whole field's separated by about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds here. Still a long ways to go, given that we've still got a handful of laps left for these guys to maybe make a move or two.
Yeah, we are in the waning hours of this race. Everyone just trying to get... Oh, it looks like Chris Fletcher just hit the wall there off of 2. Getting the old Phoenix layout, the Phoenix layout stuck in my brain there.
So Fletcher falls to 5th. Joe Robert...
Indy Kirkenbauer has been shuffled back to 4th.
Yeah, Kirkenbauer down to 4th. He's been shuffled back a bit. Joe Roberts on the inside now of Ryan Brown. He's going to look to try to make a move for 2nd here. We're running out of laps for people to make a pass on Lazinski, and I'm not sure we're going to get one, just given how well he's been able to kind of control these lanes behind him.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Kirkenbauer. Lazinski is going to be playing those 2 lanes off of each other, going high, going low, just to give each of them individual pieces of draft so they stay fighting and can't get to him. But it seems Joe Robert has now pulled out in front. What a run for Joe Robert there, coming from 12th on the grid all the way up to 2nd place, and now challenging Dylan Lazinski.
Yeah, 5 laps to go. He's going to look to the outside here heading into 1 and 2. Not going to have the momentum built up. You'll have Brian Brown looking to his inside. Not going to be able to get ahead of him in time to make that blocked off. Going to have to work the high side once more. Kirkenbauer's up there with him.
Yeah, and as you saw there, Dylan pulled low to pull Ryan Brown along, so that it couldn't be the case that Joe Robert just pulled down to the inside there. Just playing that, now he's staying high, holding Joe Robert, playing the 2 off each other, just so they don't have a shot at him. Oh, there's a little touch there.
Yeah, Robert slides up. Oh, Kirkenbauer's around.
Oh, Kirkenbauer's around. Kirkenbauer, Fletcher, both in the wall. Caution has not come out yet. But their days are likely done.
Yeah, I imagine that wreck stayed off the racing surface, and those cars aren't getting picked up by the iRacing caution system. We're going to go 2 by 2 for the lead briefly here. White flag is in the air. Tough break for Indy Kirkenbauer and Chris Fletcher late in the going. We'll have to see if we can get back to that, but we're on the white flag lap. Brown's going to look to the outside here. He's going to get help from Goodman. Those look like team cars. The paint schemes are very, very similar, if not identical.
Oh, Big crash in the background, but it looks like Wyatt Lazinski is going to seal the victory.
And we might just have to watch the last 2 laps back from about, a couple cars deep. But Wyatt Lazinski holds on to win over Brian Brown and Jason Goodman. Jarrett Corey, shout out to him, he's 5th. Crash Neon will round out the top 5, and we'll get to the rest of the field in due time. I do want to try to see if we can get a look at that wreck between Indy Kirkbauer and Chris Fletcher. So here we are coming off of turn 4. Kirkbauer's on the high side. You've got Chris. Robert's going to get moved up. Kirkbauer's going to have to slow down. He bobbles as well. They're going to come through turn 4 here. Fletcher's going to come up. I think that might be a bit of net-coded play there, and those cars are going to make contact. I believe there's going to be one more involved with that one there. Not quite sure who that is. Maybe, actually, yeah, I couldn't quite catch who that last car was. And then we had the other wreck. If we get back to... We're too far back now. Get this camera's caught back up here. So here's the wreck there. And then we'll get to this last one that I think happens just before the start-finish line.
Yeah, the last one, it looks like they went 4 wide. It was Jarrett Corey, Richard Kagan, Joe Robert. Just all of their 4 wide. Richard Kagan just got tapped by Jarrett Corey, sends them around and collects Joe Robert. Jacob, what is it with this series in the last 2 laps having all of the excitement?
Ooh, yeah, 4 wide.
Everything just kicks off.
4 wide into turn number 3. Finally got the cameras caught up to it. So we've got Jarrett Corey on the inside of, I believe that's the 12 machine or the 17 machine of Cragen. Yeah, that's Cragen who he makes contact with in the corner there. Yeah, 4 wide. Not really anywhere for those drivers to go. We'll watch this one back one more time before we get to the interview room, but here they come off into turn number 3. That's going to be Crash Neon on the inside, Jarrett Corey, the next car up. Then you've got the 17 of Richard Cragen, and then Joe Robert all the way on the high side, nowhere to go once Cragen starts spinning. That's going to send both of them into the outside wall. Jarrett Corey going to walk away from that one in the 4th spot. And we'll get to the finishing results here from Phoenix. As chaos in the final laps. We saw it at Kansas last season where basically nothing happened until that final lap and all get out broke loose. So it will be Dylan Wylazinski winning over Ryan A. Brown. Then you've got Jason Goodman, Jarrett Corey, Crash Neon, Clay Kirkenbauer in 6th. Kevin Crotty, Tommy King, Joe Robert, and Gary Yost will be rounding out the top 10. Then you have Taylor Thurman, Chris Fletcher, Richard Cragen, Indy Kirkenbauer, Matt Glenn, Dustin Bolgren, and John Corwin. A number of these cars back in the field facing issues that we saw throughout the evening, especially in those closing 2 laps. Indy is tired of the infield care center. I think that's his 2nd visit on the evening. Likewise, in his events at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll see who we've got in the interview room. I believe we've got Dylan Wylazinski in there, so we'll start with him and then give the rest of our podium finishers their due as well. Once I get Dylan's car queued up on the screen here, get a bit closer of a shot here. There's Dylan's car. We'll back the cameras up just a little bit here to give him some time to speak. And there's going to be Dylan's car up on the screen, and we'll get him on up here. Dylan Wylazinski, Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
I got you.
Well, lights to flag from the pole. That has to be pretty good feeling, all things considered. It looked like it was very much a game of getting the cars to kind of fight amongst themselves behind you. Did a very good job of kind of controlling the lanes with the air on both ends of the track. So kind of walk us through how you were able to tackle the 55-lap event tonight.
Tell you what, I felt a lot like Dale Earnhardt Jr. back in the mid-2010s, trying to control both lanes and not let anybody get up alongside me. If you got up alongside me, all they would try to do is try and hold me down going into 3 and try and kill my exit there. And I knew if I could just keep them alongside and keep them fighting with each other, they wouldn't be able to get up to me.
Yeah, certainly very much alike those super speedway races of yore with the likes of Dale Jr. at the helm, the Pied Piper, if you will. But certainly well on you to kind of manage that, much like the super speedway racing we've seen in the past. Kind of walk us through maybe the differences. I believe you were in the event at the Legacy Scan here last season. Did you feel like there was any big changes you made from there coming to here, just given the way that the track's kind of changed over the years?
Forget if they raised the banking here or if it's just because of the repave, but it's a lot easier to take it flat, especially right from the get-go. The old Phoenix, you're lifting a little bit for the first couple of laps, and that has the field spread out. And then once the tires all come up to temp, it's kind of a single file run. It's really hard to get alongside somebody to do anything. And that's like mid-pack and everything. And at this track, you can get alongside a lot easier when you're in the pack, but it's still kind of up front. It's really hard to get alongside and then do anything with.
Yeah, it certainly seemed to be kind of a textbook Phoenix race from what I've seen historically in the Road to Indy. Even on that older scan, the lower horsepower cars very much kind of struggle to break away from each other, obviously because you don't have the motoring nor the aerodynamics to really spread people out with dirty air like you do in, say, the big Indy car. You're getting this down pat, well, yeah. Nice and good here, Dylan. So if you've got any friends, family, sponsors you want to shout out, feel free to do so.
Get Good Racing, the Sprint Car Cup. They run 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
All right. Well, thank you, Dylan, for making another appearance here on the channel. We'll catch you next week, hopefully at Myrtle Beach. It should be an interesting one since it'll be, I believe, the first time we'll see a half-mile track on the schedule.
Yep. Hopefully I'll get to talk to you for a fourth time in a row.
And there we go. He's calling his shot well in advance. We'll catch him next week from Myrtle Beach. And we'll give everybody else their due as well. Ryan Brown comes runner-up after charging from the 6th spot early. He'll get that machine up onto the podium tonight. Not sure where he's around or if he's made it into. Does not look like he's made it in here. So get him on the screen. I believe him and Jason Goodman are both teammates. Not quite sure what they've got on these cars. See if we can get a bit closer to them and give their sponsors some due. I don't know if I can read that. Regardless, they're very nice-looking cars, so we'll give them their due. Jason Goodman. Talk about Jason Goodman coming through the field. He started 15th of the 17-car field tonight, made it all the way up to the podium. He put on one heck of a performance here tonight. And, Sophie, that's going to do it here from Phoenix. It'll be round 3 in the books. Kind of talk us through what you saw here tonight that maybe we'll see going forward throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, one of the big things tonight was just, again, I think we're going to keep seeing the dominance of Dylan Weilazinski. Incredibly gifted, incredible race smarts there, using the 2 lanes off of each other, pulling the bottom lane along so that the cars on top wouldn't be able to gain an advantage, and then pulling the top lane along so that the cars at the bottom wouldn't gain an advantage when they started to make momentum. Again, big trend of the 2 races I've had the pleasure of sharing the booth with you, Jacob, is cars coming from the back. We had Kevin Karate last week. This week, it's Goodman coming from the near back of the grid all the way up to, this case, the podium. And the last major trend is when 2 laps to go, all get out will happen. I can't wait to see what is going to happen during those 100 laps at Myrtle Beach.
And that'll do it for the calendar year here on P1 Broadcasting. We'll be back next week at the start of the year with IndyCar Open coverage at 7 p.m. Eastern Time from Kentucky Speedway. Going from Spa to Kentucky, that's certainly one heck of a swing. And then for the Indy NXT Road Series that'll follow up, we'll be potentially in the wet from the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya. That'll take place 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Tuesday night, the Area 51 League will be in action, being the new nightcap on the channel. We'll have IndyCar Oval Series coverage at 7:15 Eastern Time from Atlanta. And then that'll be followed up by our coverage of the Indy NXT Oval Series at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time from Myrtle Beach. And then round 1 of the Area 51 season will take place from Homestead, Miami. That starts at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to our coverage of the Indy NXT Oval Series here from Phoenix. We hope you enjoyed the action on the track here tonight, and we'll catch you whenever we catch you next. And to all those that do the difficult jobs around the world, we thank you very, very much for all that you do, allowing us to do all the fun things we like to do in this life, like bring you Indy Next coverage here on P1 Broadcasting. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.